To understand the sheer scale of the Rath Yatra festival, look at the engineering required to move these massive structures through a dense city. Millions of people gather to coordinate this incredible feat of human effort. The entire objective of this monumental gathering is to transport Lord Jagannath, along with his siblings, on these towering wooden chariots. But during one particular festival, the grand procession hit an impossible roadblock. Despite the combined effort of the massive crowd pushing and pulling, the primary chariot completely locked up. It refused to budge a single inch. Typically, moving these chariots relies entirely on brute strength. Devotees grip massive, thick coils of rope, using sheer physical force and coordinated momentum to haul the towering structures forward. All that human mass and infrastructure had reached a standstill. The coordination and engineering remained, but the chariots stayed fixed to the ground, leaving the traditional methods entirely ineffective. Desperate to get the procession moving again, the organizers escalated their tactics. They brought in mighty elephants, hitching the enormous beasts of burden directly to the massive wooden wheels. Even with the combined hauling power of the elephants, the ropes pulled taut, the animals strained, and the chariot remained entirely frozen in place. As the hours dragged on, this physical failure took a heavy human toll. The adults began losing hope, and one of their spiritual guides, Guru Ma, collapsed under the strain, entirely incapacitated and doubting the festival could continue at all. If thousands of men and trained elephants couldn't nudge the wood an inch, it suggested that no amount of additional physical weight was going to resolve the stalemate. While the adults strained, a young girl named Soni looked at the situation without the burden of their logic. She wasn't focusing on the size of the task or the weight of the wood. Soni saw a grain of the Lord's bogue on the ground and treated the fallen offering as the signal the journey was ready to begin. Ignoring the frozen behemoth in the street, the children decided to build and pull a choti rath, a tiny, seemingly insignificant wooden chariot of their own. The adults watched this and scoffed. They openly mocked the children, completely dismissing the idea that pulling a tiny wooden toy could replace the massive procession they were failing to move. But the elders were measuring devotion in tons of wood and muscle. The children didn't care about the scale. Their only focus was the pure, joyous act of pulling the Lord's chariot. Tuning out the laughter of the adults, the children picked up the thin strings of their tiny chariot. They began to pull with an unyielding, joyful faith. Defying all the physical logic that had paralyzed the elders, the small chariot rolled forward smoothly and effortlessly along the dirt path. As the children marched forward, that pure spiritual energy created an immediate ripple effect. The heavy atmosphere of despair hanging over the crowd vanished, quickly replaced by a collective sense of awe. Then, the impossible happened. Guru Ma, who had been lying completely immobilized by illness and exhaustion, suddenly found her strength. She miraculously stood up, fully healed, just to witness the children passing by. The stalled festival resumed, not because the ropes were pulled harder, but because a child's hand had touched a different set of wheels. The mockery from the elders stopped. They watched the small chariot glide forward, their own heavy ropes now hanging loose as they looked at the children. Lord Jagannath responded directly to the children's actions. He demonstrated that their innocent, faithful effort succeeded precisely where the brute strength of mighty beasts had failed. In that moment, a profound promise was established for all future generations. The Lord declared that if the elders ever become too weak or fail to pull the grand chariot, he will always manifest and allow himself to be moved, as long as children pull a small chariot with that exact same pure devotion. You can look out across the vast sea of people filling the boulevard today, participating in this giant ancient tradition, and trace its incredible scale back to a moment humbled by a tiny faithful offering. Ultimately, the divine presence is never measured by the thickest of ropes, the hauling strength of beasts, or the towering procession size. It is measured entirely by the unwavering faith of those holding the line.